going to talk about today is about research we have done as a company and together with companies. Also, some of them are present here via distributors or other suppliers. And I will talk about, if my clicker is working, yes, some disruptives in cultivation, some do's and don'ts to really be practical and show you things which you can actually take with you as a takeaway onto your own facility. Where I'm coming from, this is actually the greenhouse of my parents, where I'm born and raised. So all my life already in the growing business, and sometimes people ask me, have you grown cannabis? Of course, between our eggplants we were growing, we sometimes did. And although I was not a big smoker, I got remarks from some friends. They said, yeah, this is the best we ever had. And we just put them in between the eggplants. We did not do anything special, but it was really, that was first eye-opener for me what you can do with this crop. And later on, when I worked at Groden, I became responsible for cannabis worldwide, really only medicinal related, because Groden was a part of a big corporate Rockwool, and you are not allowed to do anything in the retail business. So nowadays I'm almost 9 years into cannabis cultivation, and the reason why I really moved to cannabis is that I really like to dive into the cultivation design and setup and making real changes. Whereas with tomatoes, peppers, we do it for 50 years in the Netherlands, we know how to do it, and it's 0.5% more or 1%. Yeah, and here we still don't have a real standard. Like in tomato, it's all V system on gutters nowadays, it's standard. With the cannabis, I can show you many pictures from the whole world, and it's like 100,000 different systems. And everybody has his own opinion and thinks he knows how to grow best. Of course, in their setup, it's probably the best, but is it the best for return on investment in the long run? Sustainability for your own company. So that's why in 2019 we started up Cultivators, and what we do as a company, we really help the growers and investors who are coming into the game, and we say we are your partner in growing business. So we help companies sometimes with a business plan, facility design, so we do not do any engineering, no, we help them making the choices, what type of light, what type of irrigation system, all these things together make it if a company or a growing facility can be successful, yes or no. And of course, after facilities have been set up, then cultivation support and helping them making the next steps and making sure in the long run they have success and they survive. How can we really be top of mind still nowadays is through all our research and education we do. So I will show you some aspects what we do in the Netherlands with the research consortium, but also education. We are the only one in Europe where growers, LPs can send their staff to have practical training with plants. Normally that is legally not an option. We have that location with Inexo, what Wesley already talked about. We have a partnership that we do that together. Cultivation research. We have set up almost 4 years ago cultivation compounds. That is actually a group of, not only I put here Dutch, but it's also some American companies connected to us, and really to further tackle all the stigmas around the crop. And we do that at a research station in the Netherlands where they normally did all the crops, and now they have a license for research with cannabis, as well as the World Horti Center. Maybe some of you active in the horticulture feed know what it is. The World Horti Center is a non-profit organization where we really show what the Dutch horticulture greenhouse industry means, and a lot of trade missions, they start over there. So trade missions from China, Middle East, South America, they start often, if it's about horticulture and growing, they start over there and they showcase what do we do as an industry in the Netherlands and why we became that famous actually in greenhouse growing. So we set up their whole pavilion to showcase what it is, and we do next to that research. And that starts with explaining how the market does look like. A lot of people have no idea about all the differences, and that, for example, hemp production is legal for many, many years. And France, where it's still medicinal cannabis is just a trial there, so it's not fully legal, but they are one of the biggest producers in Europe for hemp production. Hemp used for insulation material, even Porsche, the dashboards in Porsche cars consist of hemp. A lot of people don't know that. So that is a billion industry on itself. That's not where we are all for, but it is there. It is also cannabis. Then the daily care, the wellness, we call that the 50 shades of grey market. So, for example, what happens with sometimes with hemp production, they still harvest flowers, which actually not really allowed, but they ship it to Czech Republic, extract it over there, they further process it in Spain, and via Swiss it comes back to the Dutch grocery shops, and it's CBD cream for your skin or other types of CBD oils. So this is the industry also still in Europe. And of course then recreational. I always like to show this little can. I don't know if people of you know Lagunitas brand. Lagunitas IPA is quite a famous beer, but Lagunitas is actually from California, but it's owned by Heineken, the big Dutch brewer. They have a cannabis-infused drink already for 6-7 years in California. They cannot ship it everywhere else because of legislation, but Heineken, a big brewer, is active in cannabis drinks already for years. And this is just the beginning, and a lot of people still think only about the smoking part, but the edible part, the drinkables as we call it, yeah, going further, that will even further expand and be a big game changer. And then of course, what we are mostly talking about freely nowadays in many countries is the medicinal and the pharma market. And also a lot of people don't know the difference between medicinal and pharma, but I heard it today already. There are only a few pharma products in the world, Sativex, Epidiolex, and cannabidiol. And Sativex, Epidiolex are actually grown by only one company in the UK. But if I tell you that it is the most shitty greenhouse I've ever seen in the UK, you will be laughing. But it is true. It was my colleague at Groden Times said one moment that was a tomato greenhouse and they transformed it into cannabis. He said, how is this possible? There is no shitter greenhouse than that in the UK. But what they do is full plant extraction. So they harvest the plant and they do extraction. And they have undergone all the clinical trials, of course, and have those products on the market. But they are not really willing to change anything in their way of growing. Change is risk for pharmaceutical companies. So I've been there. One of our guys goes there every 2 months to support them a little bit in the growing, but it's not much you can do. We, at my growing time, I tried to get them from a cocoa peat perlite mix onto stone wool. Was a nightmare. They still are not, they did not change. Although the results in the stone wool were better than what they were doing now. But higher up, they are too scared to change anything because they have undergone all the clinical trials. It is, yeah, we cannot imagine like that. As especially me as a grower, we always try new things, and if it works, you change. They don't. But yeah, they own the market a little bit, and when after the takeover with Jazz Pharmaceutical, they even, what Wesley already said, there are not many other medicinal growers. Pretty sure higher up in the government, lobbying, they keep others out. It is what it is, but yeah, that is really like the medicinal market also in the Netherlands is a funny one. I don't know if you guys know that. There is only one grower, and that is Bedrocan. And already since 2003 they are cultivating. They have about 5, now 2 more products. Sometimes people ask me when I was traveling, yeah, why do they not do any clinical trials or whatsoever? But there is no incentive for them to do that because they have only one company, another company, one outlet for the product. Everything they grow goes to the Dutch government, and the Dutch government is selling and exporting it. In 2017, 2018, we were still the biggest exporter of the world in the Netherlands just by this company, before Canada came in, of course. But it's not, they are not selling it, it's the Dutch government. So they are literally, I always say, in a golden jail. And for them, there is also no incentive to improve or whatsoever. They just have to produce standardized products they have signed up for with the government. Some insights about the Dutch market. Let me continue with the consortium we have set up in the Netherlands. By clicker. It's me or is it like a... Looks like it's not working anymore. Can you help me? Somebody? Wait. No, not anymore. You did it. Okay. If you can give me a new battery, please. Here you see an overview of all the partners involved. So we are project manager, and you see all kind of top A players in supplying fields, from fertilizers to substrates, analysis, screens, and also post-harvest with Shimatsu equipment like HPLCs, twister for trimming. With all those companies, we set up a research site. We have 2 compartments of about 115 square meter, fully controlled climate system, LED lights up to 1400 ppfd. We're not using that all of the time, of course. But what we do really want to do is, okay, what if we change certain elements in the cultivation? How does that affect, in the end, the cannabinoid levels and the terpene levels? What does it mean for microbial levels? All those things we are testing, and we get some interesting aspects out of it. And you can see that we have 4 table systems in there. Now it's gutters, and I will tell you later what we have changed there because it was not working well before. So, and that was related to this, to climate control. So, as you can see over here, it is now not a fixed table anymore with a closed top. No, we removed that and we put 4 gutters on top of it to have better airflow through the canopy. And that was important because we had a cultivar which was really sensitive to botrytis. It was creating really big buds, and in the end, the last 2 weeks of flowering, that ended up with quite a bit of botrytis, interestingly. And we said it actually from the beginning, the climate control was not sufficient. And actually, it really showed off that it was not perfect. And then we got finally budget to change that. And really also towards all the other partners, guys, look, this is what is happening if you together, you set something up, learn together. And with all the knowledge from all the partners in there, we improved it. And we have now much better climate control with greatly reduced impact of botrytis for this variety, 40% less, for example, and also an improved canopy structure. And you can also see that in the red square, we're really taking also air from above the screen again to reuse that to also have better control on humidity within the crop. So really improving the microclimate for the plants. Here another picture. So that's how it now looks like towards the end of flowering. You can see the heavy buds of this variety. So from tables towards gutters on the tables system, we really improved the climate control. The airflow within the canopy was much better, as well as also the increased growth and vegetative strength of the plants. That really helped overall in the growing, and the botrytis I already mentioned. So this is a practical example within research. Now, going towards a practical example from the field. And this is actually in Thailand. One of the, I think, top-notch growers now in Thailand is Thai Stick. They really do a good job also on all the marketing and branding side. But on the growing side, when they started, they had money, but in the end they did not choose for a horticultural company for the HVAC design. So they had a local company, a top one in the housing industry. They do a really good job, but they have no idea about plant transpiration, which is really critical. And transpiration of cannabis is way higher than many other crops. And that is something they do not understand. So they actually had an undercapacity. It was an expensive solution as well. No uniformity at all. And yeah, we call it a bit like a freezer approach. They see it as a static environment, like in buildings. And yeah, that did not work, of course. So they called us in, and together we made changes into the climate system. So minor investments. So we did not say remove it completely and put a new system of supplier A or supplier B in. No, that is not how we often work. Look, what is the current situation, what you have available, which components can we use, and what components do we need to add, for example. And so we made a custom designed view with one of our climate specialists, and we changed a lot of airflow dynamics within the growing room. And by doing that, it improved plant transpiration from left to right, and also from front to back. Not perfectly homogeneous yet, but improved that much that we could save about 40% in cost, in OPEX cost for the HVAC system only. And I'm not talking about other economical aspects which also had benefits by doing all these changes. But now we have a way more stable climate for growing. And yeah, you know, Thailand with high humidities, it was really crucial. But we also proved that growing in a greenhouse in Thailand or in other countries with high humidities is for sure possible with the right approach in climate management. So this was for us a really nice project. Going back to more research highlights. So, like I already mentioned, we do all kinds of topics, from plant architecture to light intensities, irrigation, even organic fertilizers, integrated pest management, and it's all about quality, consistency, and the quantity, and in the end also uniformity. And I will show you just a few examples of things we have done over the years. This is in regards to plant architecture, so shaping the plants a little bit more, that to see how we can on all the different branches have the most uniformity from branch to branch. We realized this for this example with a top plant. It became also a bit more compact, and if you see the variation between the different branches, and as you know, taking samples and analyze them is quite expensive, so we had to do this together with Bright Labs, the partner appointed by the government for the medicinal cannabis in the Netherlands. And we literally did all these flowers for a couple of these plants and do this analysis, and you could see that we had a really nice overview of the different branches and how stable they were. So we also published an article about this one on our website, so you can, if you want to know more, you can look back. And I know often we get a comment about the THC content levels. They are really high, but we have had this multiple times, these high levels. And Nick of Cannabis Drying has the research reports as well. We had this 4 or 5 times that high. So it is not nonsense, it's true. But I know it is quite high, this variety, but this variety has that disadvantages of the botrytis susceptibility, so it's not an easy one to grow. So would this a variety that I would recommend you guys to grow directly? No, only when I have seen your facility and I know it is possible. Otherwise, you will have just like 10% A quality and the rest is shit. So you don't want that. Another one about fertigation strategies, working with larger versus smaller shot sizes, high volume of water versus low volume of water, bringing a bit of drought stress in, as well as substrate volumes. Here you see the difference between the cocoa pots and the stone wool blocks of only 3.2 liter. Yeah, you need to compare apples with apples, and that's why we need to have a bit more volume in the cocoa peat to really compare them with each other. And yeah, with this steering in for a compact crop really worked, and you can see that in the numbers on top. Looking at the time, I will not dive into all the details. This is another interesting one, light versus yield. So you can see on the x-axis the DLIs, the average DLI of that cropping cycle, and on the y-axis you see the dry flower yield in grams per square meter. Of course, this is all research and it's small numbers, of course, but what you can see is while changing the some of the factors like plant density and as well as CO2, you can have big impact on your final yield levels. If you check the red cubes at certain light levels, we really saw an increase in THC content. And then this is something I also have seen. It's a really interesting aspect to look at CO2 levels. I've seen it with a couple of growers of us as well that first did not have the money or a CO2 supply available. When they switched, we had 3 or 4% more content. And it's an interesting one. Based on these findings, we're actually gonna do now a trial with this consortium this summer in having one greenhouse compartment with CO2 and the other one not. So that we have the direct comparison and see what is the effect, maybe not only on the THC, but also on terpene levels, etc. Because there is something. We're aiming for 700 ppm. Because more was not available at that moment in the facility. Actually, Skytree joined. That is a company who can create CO2 out of the air, direct air capture. So now we can go a bit higher as well. Yeah, if you grow in a greenhouse with ventilation, of course 700 is still difficult in the summer. Yeah, so some conclusions with CO2 and the density. But not only this, also we looked at organic cannabis cultivation. The partner DCM is famous for its organic fertilizers, and they did different kind of things in looking at mineral fertilizers in cocoa peat versus an organic base with a mineral water-soluble fertilizers, but also with fully organic, so an organic base and an organic water-soluble program during the cultivation. And this was actually quite a nice overview of the root developments and the improvements with the organic line they had. Yeah, the results from these trials they did was quite clear of the, how it can help you stimulating root development and having healthy roots. And these are all in the same compartments, also the stone wool blocks. And of course, I do not compare it with the stone wool plots in this way. This is just their fields only. Yeah, and then also BioBest, it's biological control. And they actually are testing Pronomatus against powdery mildew. It's something they did in tomato and find out that actually it's a predatory mite that can eat mildew. Really strange, I never heard about it before as well, but it looks like quite effective for powdery mildew. So they could see it in the pictures before. They had tents, and we actually introduced mildew because we did not have any mildew, but we introduced it, and you could see here with higher dosages they really could control the mildew. It's interesting. Research is also part of a PhD of one of the employees, so that this will be in the news next year, probably spread globally, together with their tomato research as well. So going from one research to the vegetative phase, which already was actually mentioned by Wesley, at another research station in EXO, we actually we developed some cultivars, and we do all the trials, most of the trials then, without any vegetative period. So this comes to the question, is a vegetative phase really necessary? This is actually what we have done. It is really to, energy is a big topic everywhere in the world. And if you can reduce the energy by having no veg, that is, of course, beneficial. And as well that many growers actually grow a lot of biomass, but during the flowering phase, they remove a lot again. So why would you produce it if you take it within a couple of weeks' time? So we have the standard cultivation, which of course you have the prolonged veg phase, and we have our no veg system that we really go from propagation, 7 to 14 days, directly into flowering. So also the transplanting is done the same day as you go to flowering. This is not easy. You need to be fully on top of the propagation phase and about your mothers. If your mothers are not in control or not perfect, you cannot do this. So it's not that this is something that I'm introducing to all my growers and say, let's go for this. No, this is just to show what is possible, and to actually go from 3 weeks or 2 weeks, what still a lot of growers do, go back to 7 days or to 4 days, because that is easily possible. But it's fun to see how far we can go. So, like mentioned, these are the plants with no veg. You see me there on the picture as well. They are still big. A lot of people, firstly they said, yeah, but those plants will be only this size. No, they are of a normal size, 80 to 100 centimeters. And we really don't do any pruning during the flowering phase. So that saves also a lot of labor, is also less risk, because every time we touch the plant, especially medicinal growing, is a risk. So if you don't have to do that anymore, that is only beneficial and less risk for that part. And of course the lower energy use. Critical aspects are in the varieties, so not every variety you can do this. We have also tried varieties that it did not work out and you got those small plants. So it is not suitable for all, but with some changes and with some choices in your phenotype selection, for example, you can come to varieties that you can start doing something like this. So then going from research stuff to more practice, and also some disruptives in cultivation. A little bit more zooming in first into root zone management. With my background for a fertilizer company at the start of my career, grow there many years. Yeah, that is where also my heart is often. So the importance of the nutrients, and yeah, like Wesley already mentioned, and some other companies here, with cannabis, with biostimulants, there are products that really can be a game changer in the industry by affecting yield and quality. But what it is, nobody knows it exactly. That's why we do all this research as well, because it's that plant, climate, and also soil relationship. We start to understand more and more the last 10 years that it's openly studied. Before, it was not really research, and we need to play catch up as an industry, whereas with tomatoes or other crops, we have taken 50 years for doing that. So importance of nutrients is one aspect, water and quality control, and pH control, of course. So what is your starting water? A lot of people often forget about your starting water at your facility. That is so crucial for everything around facility design, irrigation setup, etc. As well as substrate choices and irrigation strategy, of course. This is more theoretical, but I will show it because of the passive uptake. A lot of people don't know that calcium is a nutrient that can be only taken by uptake via the xylem, water transport. So when you have, for example, limited transpiration and stomata closed, then this will not take place. So you run into problems with calcium. And I will come back to that with an example in a couple slides. So it is important that you understand active uptake versus passive uptake. This is more in detail, but you need to understand these principles to understand what you see in the growing room. And that's what I also like to do, is really help the growers on the spot what is happening. And this is an overview from Jorge Cervantes. I think a lot of people will know him. I really like this overview he created. But it's important to mention that if you see, like, for example, a magnesium deficiency or calcium deficiency, potassium deficiency, is it really that you need to increase that nutrient level? Often not. It's because you have an imbalance of your nutrient recipe. So if you have all the cations, and then I take as example calcium, magnesium and potassium, they need to be in balance because they compete with each other for uptake by the plant. And that you maybe have a calcium deficiency is because you're supplying too much magnesium and too much potassium. So I always say you can view a lot, you can have an indication what it is, but the real cause you don't know. Then you need to check, do analysis, what is it really? And you see then, for example, that all the elements are too low. And then you need to adapt your recipe accordingly. Then, here an example. If you see this picture, is anybody who dares to answer what deficiency you have here? If you look to this and the previous slide, you might think, magnesium deficiency. I always say Christmas tree effect with the greening. It looks like that a little bit. This was one of my growers, and I came there and we saw this. I said, yeah, but we did not change anything in the recipe. Nothing at all. It was the same as the year before, the months before. Substrates was the same. Nothing really changed, except some of the temperatures in the room. So it was actually a calcium deficiency caused by a lack of transpiration. It became so hot in this greenhouse in France that stomata closed. So no water transport through the xylem, as I mentioned before. So ending up in calcium deficiency. And that is really, we only find it out that I ask, okay, give me your overviews of temperatures, etc., together with the analysis we did, and then we see the problem. So that is growing. Everything is related. If you change one thing, it can change all the things as well. So it's a full picture. You need to see that plant-climate relationship as well. Another example. It is really, if you see this, oh, shit, what is happening? Some people will say, yeah, we have a virus. It's the latent hop viroid. In the end, what it was, after a couple of days, I followed also some people who did actually some of the crop work. It was damaging the growing tips by a too high concentration of hydrogen peroxide of the scissors. They were doing really nice, according to the SOP, cleaning in a small bucket the scissors. But that concentration was not prepared well, and the concentration was that high, causing direct burning on the plants. So just some simple examples, but things you can really have in practice, and that finding that out is I always like it, to find things which you think is maybe easy. It is a virus. No, it is simple things like a good SOP and checking everybody is working along these SOPs. Looking to the time, I will speed up the last parts. So other disruptives, which I often see, for example, growing in stone wool. What is important then is that you do correct saturation of the blocks, fully saturate. all those producers, they have tables. They show you how many grams the product should be after fully saturation. Because if you see the products over here, you see really dry spots here on top as well. Their roots will never grow. So actually you buy a big volume, but you only use 50%. So it's the waste of money, if you ask me. So with stone wool, that is a really critical point. If you go to organic substrates, of course, it needs to be washed and buffered in the correct way. And you need to get all this information from your supplier. You need to demand that as a grower. Because you need that information to make your fertilizer recipe. Without that information, you cannot make your right fertilizer recipe. So you need that information. And you need to adjust it based on analysis. Because from batch to batch, it will be different. Sometimes it's only small, but if you have a really nice season in Sri Lanka or India, or you have a really wet season, that affects the quality. And there are suppliers that had sometimes really bad batches, and they had to inform their growers, guys, take our product out because we know it is not good because of certain elements in there. That happened in California a couple of years ago. And one more important thing is with stone wool, it's of course inert. So never wet up those products with only water, because there is no EC in it. You need to put nutrients in there. I've seen it in practice. Yeah, my roots, I don't get any roots in my clones. Yeah, if you only put 0.4 EC, which is sometimes maybe sufficient if you have organic plugs where there is already a 0.8 EC in, yeah, then 0.4 is sufficient, but not with stone wool. Minimum 1.5 EC, for example. And other things like transplanting. Here we were called in by a grower. Yeah, suddenly we have all kind of issues with pythium. Is it my water? Is it too hot? All kind of things. No, it was two new crop workers who actually were really pressing the plants into the cocoa peat without actually creating a little hole. So the normal plug size was in the white box, and they ended up with only half of it. Then drip replacement, another one which sometimes go wrong, that they put them really close to the plant or too far away, close to the edges of the containers or the blocks, creating all kind of other issues. So these are all kind of practical things I see back in practice. And it happens not only with new growers, also happens with experienced growers. But they were used to treat all plants themselves when they were, for example, growing in their basement. Now they're running 10,000s, 100,000s, millions of plants. And you cannot check all the plants yourself. So you need to guide your people in a good way. You need to train people on that. And that's what I see in practice sometimes really going wrong. Another one, root zone sensors is an important factor Wesley also showed. Yeah, what is wrong here? Yeah, if you place a dripper together with the sensor, yeah, you're measuring. What are you measuring? You cannot judge anything on that and change your irrigation settings on that. So, yeah, put it at where the green cross is, for example. So sometimes people think more sensors, more data. But more sensors is good. But how to place them and how do we get accurate data, that is an important part. Only then you can make informed decisions. And that's what sometimes is really going wrong, and I will show you other examples on this. For example, over here, the humidity sensor. See the red box? You see what is here? Nice that you measure what is the humidity over there, but it doesn't make any sense. We need to know what is the humidity at plant level. Another one, big indoor grow in Europe, triple racking, climate box, aspirator box, next to the wall. Yeah, what data are you getting? What can I do with this data? Nothing, I said. So it's really about getting reliable, sustainable data And based on that, we can make decisions for your strategy, climate strategy, for example. And this is, for example, what a grower in North America, they even had triple stack climate boxes. This is what we do in horticulture world, for example, and in tomatoes, eggplants, peppers. Multiple measuring points that you know what's happening at crop level, below crop level, and sometimes below and above the screen, so that you really can play with climate strategies. I don't say we need to go in cannabis directly to this, those kind of things, but we need to step by step improve in, okay, how do we get the data, and is that data useful? Can we use it? Then this overview, as you all should know, about all the different phases. And I want to show this because of the last topic I want to briefly describe is actually your model plans. People often forget how important this room is for your whole business. And I can tell you, 80% of the time with new clients, we need to focus on the modeling first, because things they do there are affecting everything up to flowering. I sometimes have growers that you come and they say, yeah, this week we don't do anything with the models because we have so many plants to harvest. There it's going wrong. First of all, it's all about your models. It's not for a reason that in other horticulture crops we often have breeders, big companies. We have propagators who are big companies. Then we have the producers, the growers, and then packaging company. Within cannabis, it's all vertical integrated, often due to compliance. So actually, it is a nightmare to run a cannabis facility. You need all these pads. And that is not easy. So it's also logical that sometimes the focus is not on the right elements, and that's how we help growers and investors. And model plans, it's all about the health, structure, and uniformity. You can win so much in your total facility if you be on point in your model plans. Look at the model plant age, get a coefficient, at what moment the clones I can take from my plants are actually less powerful. You need to find that moment for your varieties. And also regenerate your models, for example, using tissue cultures so that you go back to the same background for your clones. Because if you take new models from old models of vegetative plants, you will get changes, you get mutations. So I always use this picture. If I see this, I'm almost crying. This is not a healthy model plant. There is no system behind it. And the clones you take on top are completely different than on the bottom. This is just a picture I took from the internet. Somebody's really proud of the model plants, but I'm almost crying. So any weakness, sickness, or heterogeneity in your models ultimately really compromises your yield and quality in the end. So just some things about cuttings, but it's really any lack of uniformity in this stage makes crop steering later on more difficult. And that brings me actually to the last item of tracking and tracing. Because if you do tracking and tracing from the models all the way into cultivation, we can track back. Maybe you find a hop latent viroid, and you can then track back, is it maybe coming from one model? Discard your model, you're done with that. So that's why it's important from the beginning, track and trace. It is sometimes paperwork, but it really helps also in cultivation. So these are the benefits you can take out of the compliance aspects into this crop. And that brings me actually by the last slide, some takeaways. What about research and innovation that generates new knowledge for you guys, what I'm presenting, that you can take to your own facility. Sensors really help, but make sure you have reliable data from these sensors. Model plans are, like I mentioned, also so crucial for your total facility and constant yield and quality. So this was my presentation, and thank you for listening, and if there are questions.
Sonny, I think it's one that I get to work with in that, and that you'd be able to best answer for a lot of people, is when we talk about sensors, how many sensors in terms of root zone management for root zone management is an effective base minimum? And I think that's key because they are expensive. What is the number that you need to get accurate data as a starting foundation?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but at least 2 or 3 sensors per growing area you want. And it's really about how much money you have available to spend on sensors. But having one sensor is nothing. You want 2 or 3 sensors per flower room. And if you have multiple layer, then it's a different game. Then you need on every level 2 or 3. But that is a base I use, and what we often do with growers is we make a proposal and say, okay, this is the minimum amount of sensors we should do. This is more ideal. And if you want to be top notch and know everything, then go to this amount of sensors. So we help growers with that as well.